All right, everybody's favorite topic, budgeting. Welcome, I'm Kat, and I have been budgeting since my very first paycheck from my first full-time job, and I love the feeling that having control over my finances brings, and I want to share how I approach thinking about money so that you can love budgeting too. Creating a budget is one thing, but sticking to it is another. So in this video, I am going to be sharing my mindset shifts that you can bring into your budgeting practice to actually make it rewarding and make it add value to your life. So a couple of disclaimers to get started. I am not a financial planner. I am not providing financial advice. This is my personal budgeting strategy and the way that I personally think about finances. There is not one way to budget. This is just what I have developed and come to love as I have evolved my budgeting routine over many years. And there is no shame in having debt. Let's say it again for the people in the back. There is no shame in debt. Shame keeps us from taking action, and we will only continue to budget month after month after month if every month feels like a win, not if it feels like a loss. That being said, I want to acknowledge that talking about finances carries a wide breadth of emotions and different emotions for different people. We are not robots and our budgets are not simply numbers in a spreadsheet. So we can take ownership of that knowledge and use it to our advantage in knowing that we are emotional beings and knowing that there are emotions tied to money when we're creating our budgets. Today, we are going to be breaking budgeting into 3 steps. 1, make a plan. 2, find the right budgeting tool, and 3, reflect and grow. Starting with step number 1, making a plan. So making a plan gives you the knowledge to answer this question: how much income is enough income to meet my needs? I'm not really interested in living a life in which I am always seeking more and what I have is never enough. And so I attempt to answer this question: how much income do I need to meet my needs? This gives me the proper frame of reference for needs versus wants, and the margin that I'm going to be working with when creating my budget. This also helps me refrain from lifestyle inflation if my income were to increase. I created a Google Sheets template that I reference every month. It is linked up here and in the description if you want to make a copy and follow along as I go through this. Let's walk through how I think about this plan. First, you are going to want to enter your take-home income by each paycheck. This is actually what appears in your bank account after taxes and any other insurance or investments come out of that. This brings us to our budgeting hack number 1. Stick with me on this. Use last month's paychecks to budget for this month. This is especially nice if you have income that varies from month to month. This helps make the planning process more manageable. You aren't going to be guessing how much you will be paid this month, and you can't actually spend too much before you have been paid. This is a little difficult to start, but after a few months, it is extremely beneficial. To give you an example, if you take home $4,000 in the month of June, in order to start budgeting using last month's paycheck, then you can budget, let's say, $2,000 for the month of June, and then you can budget the other $2,000 for the month of July. This would then leave all $4,000 of July's paycheck to be budgeted for in August. I know that's annoyingly complicated, but if you get started treating last month's income as this month's spending, you will always know how much you have to spend and budget for. All right, step 2 in creating our plan. In the step 2 box, you're going to enter your first expenses, and this is going to be giving, taxes, investing, and debt payments. So I am not telling you how to spend your money, but if you are interested in giving part of your income away, here is your first mindset shift to think about. How many times am I going to say mindset wrong? Giving, not just monetarily, but in general, is proven to release serotonin and make you feel happier. This spreadsheet automates to 10%, but you can update this to fit your needs in this moment. The way that I think about this, though, is that if you wait to give whatever is left at the end of the month, there is never going to be enough to give away. There's always going to be something else that we want to spend our money on. But when we prioritize giving first, then there is enough to give. And then we can budget accordingly with what is left in our paycheck and prioritize our needs from there. Use this taxes box for future taxes that you are going to need to pay from any paychecks where taxes aren't already taken out. Use the debt boxes for any debt payments that you have. We aren't specifically diving into strategies to pay off debt today, but the more aggressively that you pay off your debt, the less time that it has to build up interest against you. Credit cards are notorious for having insanely high interest rates, so prioritize those debt payments and others like them as soon as possible. Then allocate any retirement or other investments into the investing box. This is just for extra investments that you want to start contributing to, like a Roth IRA that isn't already taken out of your paycheck, like a 401k through your employment. Now let's move on to the box labeled step 3, fixed expenses that are necessities. These are things that would be very hard to decrease your spending on, like rent, groceries, transportation costs. I put some suggestions in the list here. Leave anything that is a part of your budget, add what is missing, and delete what you don't need. Using either bank records or estimating that you can always adjust later, update the first column for how much you would need in a month, and the next column will update automatically to show what that costs you in a year's time. That brings us to budgeting hack number 2. For some of the payments that don't come around every month, like car maintenance or healthcare costs, but can be really expensive payments, take what you would spend in 12 months and divide that by 12. This way, you are slowly building up the money month over month in this category until you need it. When you have a larger payment come along, you are prepared and not surprised. Also, often paying in a lump sum is cheaper than paying monthly. Moving now to the box labeled step 4, fixed expenses that are wants. These are things that might be hard to cut back on, but that you could cut back on if you needed to. Go ahead and update your categories and then the monthly expenses like you did for your needs. Feel free to pause this video at any time. I know that I am flying through this. And lastly, let's move to the box labeled step 5, savings. With all of your expenses tallied up now, you'll see how much you have left over to put towards your savings goals each month. This is broken down into long-term goals and short-term goals. Enter in your goal names, and then play around with what percent of your leftover paycheck you want to put towards each goal. Make sure that the total at the bottom equals 100%. Then enter in how much you have saved so far towards this goal and what the goal amount is. Then you'll be able to see at this rate how long it will take to reach that goal in months and in years. The cool thing about calculating your savings this way is that if you bring in extra income from a gig or a side hustle, your fixed expenses don't change, your needs and your wants. You have all that money that is now just going to go into savings, or debt, or investing, wherever your priorities are right now. So for example, if I add $150 as a third paycheck to this budget, you can see how my fixed expenses don't change, but now I am saving more and the time to reach my goals has decreased. The part I talked about before about how making a plan prevents lifestyle inflation, this is why. Because when your income increases, you're not increasing your needs and your wants. You are increasing towards your savings goals. You're not actually getting caught up in, oh, now I have more money, so now I can, buy all of these other things. No, even though I have a little bit more money, I still have the same amount budgeted towards these categories in my needs and my wants. Obviously, this can be adjusted as life needs come about, but this step just helps us be aware of what is actually happening with our money over time. As a rule of thumb, anything that you would consider taking out debt for or using a payment plan for, like a car, needs its own saving category. This brings us to mindset shift number 2. Let's say you're saving up for a new car. Before you buy that car, tell yourself that you have a car payment for that car. That is what you're going to put in your savings each month. You have a car payment, but that car payment is for a future car, not the car that you own. Instead of paying interest to a loaner on your car payment, you can instead put this car savings into something like a high yield savings account or a certificate of deposit or something that earns a little bit of interest on the money that you are saving for a car. I'm just going to do a little math because I think it's interesting. Here is how much you would spend on a 5-year loan for a new car that costs $20,000 where you don't put anything down. Here is how much you would make if you put that exact same monthly payment into a high yield savings account that, let's say, is earning 3.5% interest. The thing about this is it just takes planning. You'd have to plan for 5 years, in this case, before you want to buy the car. But that's why we budget. Budgeting is all about planning and preparing for the future when big expenses come up, that we are prepared for it. And then along the way, earning a little bit of interest on the money that we are saving for those purchases. It's all about the mindset. It's all about the mindset. Okay, finally, pause. I know I've been speaking fast. Take a look at your budget breakdown. Ask yourself, does this match my expectation and my financial goals? This brings us to mindset shift number 3. Think of budgeting as freeing. This is not restrictive. Budgeting gives you the freedom to spend with the knowledge that you already have the money set aside for that thing in that category. It is the most freeing feeling in the world when you know that you need something or that you want something and the money's right there. It says, hey, this is the money to go buy that car. That's freeing, that's exciting, and that feels like a huge win. All right, moving on to part 2. We've made our plan. Let's find the right budgeting tool to track our expenses. Honestly, it doesn't matter what app or tool you use, most have the same functionality. So basically on this app, you're going to set up this budget that you just made your plan for. It's just how you're going to keep track of it. Free versions of an app usually mean you have to go in and manually track each transaction. The pros of this is that it's great for keeping close tabs on your budget and spending mindfully. However, the cons for this are that automatic transactions that just bills that just come out of our bank accounts, we don't typically think about those. And so it's more difficult to keep track of those as you manually track. It's almost like at the end of the month, you have to go back and balance the checkbook to make sure that what you've put in your budget actually matches your bank statement, everything that you've spent that month. And then the other side of the apps are, if you want to pay for them, they'll often connect to your bank account. And then all you have to do is go in and sort the transactions. I use the EveryDollar app and I pay $80 a year for the paid version. I am not promoting this app. I am not saying that it is the best out there. It is what I have used for 7 years. And for about 3 of those years, I have used the paid version. I just love to have my insights and all of my historical data, and it works great for what I need it for. But there are plenty of apps out there. Once you've found an app that you like, in order to start building the habit of using that app, set a reminder every few days to just go in, enter transactions, or move them into their correct budgets, just to stay up to date. It's hard to build a new habit. Just remind yourself every few days. The more often you do it, the less transactions there are to track, and it won't feel as overwhelming. Then, here is the key that is going to be the hardest shift when you actually start using a budget. Before you go and spend, open your budget and make sure that the money is actually there to spend. It sounds really easy when I say it, but it's really not. It is difficult to reprogram our brains to go in and check something before we spend in the ways that we have spent previously. That didn't make any sense, I don't think. It's hard to build a habit. That's all I'm saying. But it is a worthwhile habit to build. This brings us to mindset shift number 4. When you have the urge to buy something, this could be something small, this could be something big, but it just feels like this impulsive urge, add it to a running list. Don't purchase it right now. Just write it down. There's something about writing it down that makes me feel like, oh, I'm not forgetting about it. Like, I'll go back, I'll buy that thing. Like, I'm still gonna receive that dopamine hit from buying this thing, but leave it on a list, just in the Notes app, wherever, written down. Put it all in a list and keep it all in one place. Then, when you have the money saved up in your budget, come back to that list. The distance between you writing it down and you coming back to that list when you have the money, this distance is going to help you decide whether that thing is actually really worth it, whether you actually want that thing, because the impulse has been removed. You've taken a few days, weeks, months, whatever, and set it aside. Then you can go back and you're more mindful about it this way. It's not just oh, I really want this thing right now and I have to have it, so I'm just gonna one-click buy it. You actually ask yourself, do I want this thing? And if not, you cross it off your list. You delete it. And then you didn't spend the money and you don't have to worry about then getting rid of the thing if you're not using it. Okay, now you are ready to set up your app. Go through, add income and all of the categories that you created in your guide in the spreadsheet, and update the planned amount with what you planned monthly. Again, pause this video. I know I'm moving very fast. Now let's talk about funds. This is really where I start to gamify my budget and where it feels like a reward every month. I create funds for every single one of my categories. And what this means is that if I don't spend all of the money that is budgeted for that fund or that category, it's going to carry over next month. This brings us to mindset shift number 5. When you don't have a budget, the money you choose not to spend on something just ends up getting spent on something else. With a budget, the money that you choose not to spend doesn't just disappear. It doesn't go into the void. It just compounds on what you budget for next month. Budgeting isn't a use it or lose it system. This is a system where delayed gratification leads to winning. Now that we have our budget set up, it is time to practice, reflect, and grow. Every month, you are going to look at your spreadsheet plan and you're going to ask yourself, what is working? What isn't? And what adjustments are needed? Our lives, our goals, our plans, they change. And it is okay to change your budget to reflect that. There are seasons in which we can save a lot, and there are seasons in which we cannot. And then after you have reflected on this plan, just make sure that all of those changes are reflected in your app as well. Now, you might be asking, why do I need the plan? Why not just use the app if I have the app? I think that this spreadsheet, this guide, helps me see a bigger picture of where my money is going, and it prepares me mentally and emotionally for setting up my monthly budget in the app. But if it's not helpful for you, drop it. Only use resources that make you feel empowered. I honestly get excited to budget every month because I feel empowered over my finances. And I know where every single dollar is going. Like I said earlier, find a rhythm that works for you in tracking your transactions, set a reminder, or start to habit stack with something that you are already doing, and just look at your budget before you spend. Following a budget and spending mindfully means that you take back control and that you are no longer controlled by marketing campaigns and fads. And that is an insanely freeing feeling. So, what tips do you have for other people starting a budget? Feel free to share those in the comments below. Thanks for watching and happy budgeting. Okay, but you gotta look at my adorable, adorable puppy dog.